Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Shannon Benefield, and I'm here to talk about how differentiated instruction is going to create more authentic student engagement and also create a more successful learning environment. Why do we need to change to differentiated instruction? Well, one of the reasons why is, for obvious reasons, is to create student engagement. The old model is a very teacher-centered approach to learning. What it is, this is an instructional model where it's lecture-based. Most of us have sat through a high school classroom or have sat in a college course where the instructor sits behind a podium and talks and talks and talks and talks and talks and talks. By giving us all that information, we sit back and we take notes and we listen. All right, today's high school student is not built for that. The 21st century learner is not built to sit there passively taking notes. And that's what this old model is all about. There's no engagement. And what it does is it holds the students as a captive audience. Anytime that you speak for more than 20 minutes, the students are going to cash out. They're going to wind up passively taking notes, not even knowing what they were writing, and more importantly, not soaking any of that information in. So, what's the new approach that we're looking at taking? The new approach is built around project-based learning. It's all about creating a specific environment within the classroom where the students are working in small groups, learning from one another, collaborating, working together, being creative, and thinking analytically. This approach creates authentic student engagement. Now, why does it do that? Because what happens is as these students are in these small groups, they're taking ownership of their learning. And when they take ownership of their learning, they become independent learners. And when they become independent learners, they become successful learners. And when they become successful learners, guess what happens? They become successful members of society that are able to compete in the 21st century workforce. So, by chunking our lecture within 15 minutes in small little chunks to give out pieces of information and then breaking it up into predetermined groups, what happens is it changes gears within your lesson. It keeps the kids on their toes and they're constantly moving, they're constantly having to think, and they're not having to sit there and passively take notes. Now, this differentiated instruction model that's creating this engagement starts this way. Everyone knows what a bell ringer is. They come in, they get that on-task activity. You know, what is this? Tell me what you think in this. Tell me what this is all about. Then from there, you move on to a little bit of direct instruction with the introduction of the topic. After that, make sure that you break them down into small groups. Have them discuss what they just heard. Let them sink it. Let the information sink in. Let it register, let them thinking about it, and let them move on and talk about it even more within that. Then from there, introduce a writing sample. Introduce some informational text. As students get older, they're going to have to start reading more informational text. Now, whether it be textbook, whether it be magazine articles, whether it be a biography, that's up to the teacher. Okay? Then from there, create a formative assessment. Remember, formative assessment is not necessarily one of those things that has to be pen and paper. It doesn't have to be a large portion of your grade. What it does is it gives you a gauge of what that student knows. Some examples of formative assessments that a lot of people don't realize. You know, you can go into Google, especially with technology, you can go into Google Docs, and there is a Google Forms is an app that's on there that you can use on your iPad, you can use it on your Chromebook, and you can set up a survey. Set up a survey. Have the kids rate how they feel about the topic 1 to 10. And then if they have any specific questions. That's a formative assessment. Have them repeat that objective of the day. Have them talk about that outcome. Okay, remember, when you think about project-based learning, you're planning with the beginning, with the end in mind. Okay? Project-based learning, it's a fairly new approach in the classroom. I know the state of Alabama, we're starting to adopt it. Here at Benjamin Russell, we're adopting it. This is year 2 into it. And what it does is it teaches our kids how to maneuver and how to negotiate real-world problems. By doing this, it creates a rigorous content. It's not so much about content-based as much as it is about skill-based. And those skills are the most important things because that is what a 21st century learner or 21st century student is all about. They're all about the skills that they're able to take with them outside of the 4 walls of the classroom and apply it to everyday life. How do we do that? Through a cooperative learning environment within those small group settings. Those small group settings are very crucial to the PBL. You probably don't want to grow with a group any more than 3 or 4, okay? From there, you're going to have them make sure that they're taking the lesson independently, looking up the information themselves, forming a solution to the problem, and able to move it on. Always make sure that with these PBLs, it's more of a creative assessment model. In my classroom, I can honestly tell you, you could do presentations, you could do iMovies, you could post things on YouTube, anything like that for the student to get more creative. So that way they're not having to freak out and have test anxiety whenever you put that pen and that paper in front of them. Okay, so that project-based learning model, once again, the students are taking on these rigorous activities. They're taking ownership in their own learning. They're becoming independent thinkers. Now, when they become independent thinkers, what that does is that shifts from that traditional model of where that teacher's standing up there talking all the time, and now guess who takes over? The student does. The teacher steps back, and they're the facilitator of learning, okay? All of us don't like hearing that word, facilitator. We want to hear the word instructor. You can be an instructor or you can be a facilitator. Trust me, you're going to get more out of your students if you're facilitating, all right? Because of this change of setting, the learning goes from passive, where they're sleeping on the job, to active, where they're actually taking ownership, taking care of business, all right? And then it reaffirms with your positive student outcomes. You're going to find out that with putting in PBLs into the classroom, those kids that weren't participating, those lower end students, the ones that are the at-risk students, they're going to participate more, they're going to be more successful. And you're going to find out that there's a lot more to them than what you thought at the beginning of the year. Okay, so when we look at this, we need to think about a few things. Get away from teacher-centered activities, make it student-centered. Okay, the lecture model is not necessarily a bad thing, but it's not the best thing. Let the kids take ownership in their own learning and create positive outcomes. Thank you for your time.